Our first child in this picture. She was happy and couldn't wait for the day for our baby to be born, and neither could I. As a matter of fact, I started fatherhood training months in advance of the due date. As you can see by this picture, I made sure I prepared myself for diaper duty, taking all the precautions. On March 19th at 1:00 a.m., Nicole's contractions began. The big day was finally here. This was the day we had been waiting for. We loaded up the car and headed to the birthing center to meet our midwife. As you can tell, Nicole was in a lot of pain. She wanted to make sure our baby was brought into this world drug-free, so she chose to have a natural birth. Nicole spent the next 24 hours in hard labor. She opted to get into the tub to relax and prepare for a water birth. Little did we know at the time that we still had 15 more hours to go. At 7:00 a.m. on March 20th, the midwife informed us that she had determined the baby was not positioned properly and that it was time to go to the hospital. At 10 a.m., we arrived at Parkland Hospital in Dallas, Texas. At 2:00 p.m., the doctors informed us that the baby's heart rate had increased to 204 beats per minute and that Nicole was running fever. Her water had been broken for over 20 hours and she was running a high risk of infection. An emergency C-section was called for. I have to admit I was scared, but I informed Nicole that everything would be all right. I gave her a kiss on her forehead, and then they wheeled her off to the operating room. The doctors informed me that it was a 2-hour procedure and that there was nothing to worry about, and that they would be out to get me in the waiting room when the procedure was completed. At 4:30 p.m., the doctors came through the waiting room doors and called for me. They said, "Mr. Burfield, we need to speak with you in private, please." They escorted me down the hallway into an isolated room. I had no idea what was going on, but my heart was throbbing. It was pounding like it was going to rip right through my chest. When I walked through the door, the attending doctor was there to greet me. "Mr. Burfield, please have a seat." Words I did not want to hear. "Mr. Burfield, we ran into serious complications with your wife's C-section. Your wife lost a lot of blood." She said, "You see, Mr. Burfield, we performed the first incision, which was a horizontal cut. But when we went to get your baby out, the baby was so lodged in your wife's pelvis that we could not get our hands behind the baby's head to pull it out. So in order to make more room for us to work, we performed a second incision, a T-cut. However, to our dismay, your baby was still severely lodged in the pelvis. So we had to invert the table and use the forces of gravity to assist us in the delivery of your baby. One person was not strong enough to dislodge the baby, so it actually took 2 doctors pulling on your baby to dislodge it. We finally got the baby out, but when we got the baby out, your baby wasn't breathing. It took us 2 minutes and 41 seconds to resuscitate your baby. However, your baby is severely bruised. The arch of the left foot is turned out due to positioning. And I'm sorry to say, Mr. Burfield, but your baby's right arm is completely paralyzed. But everyone is okay, and everyone is alive. And you're the father of a baby girl, Bailey Caroline Burfield." As you can imagine, I broke down in tears. Bailey was placed in the NICU immediately following her birth. You can see the severe bruising on her little neck. The muscle strain would later be diagnosed as torticollis, as you can see in later pictures. It broke my heart to see her like this. She's so precious, and I just wanted to take her and Nicole home. My first phone call was to my friend Ken, who was a chiropractor and my business partner. I explained to him what had happened, and he agreed to meet us at the hospital to give Bailey her first adjustment. Within 3 hours of her first adjustment, she started to move her right arm. Within 2 days, she had regained full function. The doctors said it was a miracle. I told them, "You're right. It's chiropractic. The power that made the mind, body, and spirit heals the mind, body, and spirit." This would prove to be the second of 4 miracles that Bailey would experience. The first being the regaining of her breath. The second, overcoming the paralysis of her right arm. The third would be torticollis. I eventually scheduled an appointment with Dr. Christine Hyman. She has a pediatric practice here in Dallas and has adjusted many children with torticollis. I wanted someone who was familiar with this type of case, and she came highly recommended. Over the course of the next 12 months, Bailey was seen once a week at Dr. Hyman's office, and within 8 months, we saw a dramatic difference in her head tilt. Within the year, you couldn't even tell she had a problem. Over that period of time, there were days and nights that Bailey would just cry and cry, and I knew that it was because she was in pain. The first 6 months were tough. You can see by these pictures how bad her torticollis was. I have to admit though, there were days that I didn't know if she would ever get better. It was on those days that I learned the true meaning of faith. My wife and I both kept the faith, and eventually her body healed completely. And today she laughs, she plays, she runs, she skips, she jumps, and she does everything a normal 20-month-old does and more. She can count to 6, and she can count to 3 in Spanish. Bailey is a chiropractic miracle. Oh, and remember that left foot? It's healed. She's a walking testimony for chiropractic. And it is her and her alone that gives me a reason every day to wake up and gives me strength to go out there and tell the world about chiropractic. I have one message for you today, if you're still listening. Keep saving lives.
Daddy dancing? That's nice. Do a spin, Daddy, do a spin.
I love you.
Me too. Mwah. Get on your tippy toes. Tippy toes.